Today we're going to look at Nebula, a game for 2 to 4 players by Christian Bustos and Bernardo Vasquez that was released in 2023 by Chilean publisher Fractal Juegos. This game has now been released in multiple languages by multiple publishers around the world, and I played 7 times on a review copy from Fractal Juegos, both the introductory game and the full game with 2, 3, and 4 players, and thought I'd talk about it, show you how it works. Here are the components for the introductory game of Nebula, with each player getting a constellation board that depicts 4 constellations that are identified by symbol. Each board is identical, so pick the color you want along with the 4 matching tokens. You have a bag of stars, with stars coming in 7 colors, with 20 copies of each non-black color, with the black stars having 30, 25, or 20 in the bag, depending upon whether you're playing with 2, 3, or 4 players. You draw at random and fill the star systems. They have 5, 6, and 7 spaces. Each player will draw stars from the bag depending upon where they are in the player order. So you will start with 0 to 3 stars beside your board. To finish that up, draw for the boosted star in the center of the board. On a turn, you are going to start by collecting stars, either using time or chaos. So with time, you're going to start with the moon tokens here. That's how they start at the beginning of the game. And you are going to move the moons, a total of 5 spaces, clockwise or counterclockwise, around each system. You don't have to go the same way each time you are moving. So I could say I'm going to go 2 spaces in this direction to get this white star, and 3 spaces in this direction to get the blue, and I'll leave this one here. So you are not required to move a moon. You are not required to pick up things. You generally want to get as many stars as possible, but you don't have to. When you are resorting to chaos, you don't pick here. You instead take a star that's beside your board, you remove it from play, you then reach in the bag, draw 5 stars at random, and keep 2 of them. So you only gained 1 star, but you may have stars to spare depending upon how everything plays out. You are next going to place stars onto your constellation board, first in the center and then connecting out from there, whether you were connecting by a solid direct line, by a hashed indirect line, or by a white hashed orbit space. So over time, you could end up placing there, 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 and there. Those are all connected, but in different ways. Direct, direct, indirect, orbit. All valid plays. When you are placing stars, you place 2 stars that are different colors into your grid, except if you are placing the boosted star color, then you can place 3 stars as long as they're all different colors. So 2 or 3 stars of different colors, and why you want to place them in whichever arrangement will depend upon your personal objective and the common objectives that you are racing for. So I might do something like this. Now, you're placing stars, they must be different colors when you place them. And very importantly, no star can be next to a star of the same color. So I cannot place this white star there because it's touching by orbit another white star. Can't go there, there, or there. Depending upon how you play, you can end up causing yourself some trouble. So if I put those stars there over time, then this spot must be filled by blue or purple because it touches orange, white, yellow, and red. Now, black stars, when you get them, old stars that have faded away, not there anymore, they go up here. They do not get placed in the constellations because we would not see them. We are only placing stars that we would see in the constellations. The dark stars go up here. This is one way that you score. You score at the end of the game your lowest revealed number. So if I put this up here, I get 2 points. If I put more, now I get 4 points, and so on. each time you place a black star, you move this marker along the board. And at the turn that you hit that third space, or 6th, 9th, or 12th, at the end of your turn, you remove the boosted star from play and draw something else, which could be the same color. Or, not even looking there. Okay, black star. There are no black stars on the board, which means unless you have a black star in the reserve, you can place only 2 stars over here. Might be time to resort to chaos. Let's back up. Okay, so I place 3 stars because I place purple. I see whether I complete any common objectives. Let's look at those. So you turn out 4 objectives at random, and the first player to complete an objective marks the top of the card. They will score this many points. Everyone else will score fewer points. So the objectives take similar types. So you have this one here, have at least 2 blue stars in 3 different constellations. So 2, 2, and 2, right? 2, 2, 2, whatever it is. This one in the middle does nothing. So if I place these, I might wanted to have placed them like this to at least have 1 blue star here. This can't be blue, but then I have other spots for blue in the future. Okay, there's one of these for each color. So here you have to complete a constellation with exactly 3 different colors. So I might want to start working on this one. Let's reorient here. Oh, actually we're going to do, well, this is not great options. So I'm going to start the blue, but there's no blue on the board here. So maybe I want to use purple since there's only one other purple, and other people will want purple so that they can place 3 stars at a time instead of 2. Maybe I want to stick to blue. Okay. So complete a constellation with exactly 3 different color stars. Can be a challenge, especially as you're trying to do this as well. You also have this. Complete orbit 2 with exactly 5 different colors. So orbit 2 is identified here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spaces. You must have 5 different colors among those 6 spaces in order to complete this. Here, completing indirect links. So there are 4 indirect links on the board. You must have both spaces covered on each end in order to satisfy this. So if I ended up placing there and there, now I've completed that indirect link. And I placed a white next to a white, so don't do that. And I can go orange out to red, complete that one. I want to keep going here. That's not going to work. If I do orange and orange, now I've completed this constellation with 3 different colors, satisfying this. So you are trying to do all of this at once. It is a race to complete these objectives in order to score more points than other players, or at least score them at all, because the game ends when a certain number of markers are placed on the objectives. So I race, I get this one first, blue player gets it as well, and then pink gets it, and actually green gets this one. Okay, blue gets that, red gets that. And you get enough markers, game ends at the end of that round. So this is one of the game end triggers, is racing to complete these objectives. So you must be focused on ideally using each star to satisfy multiple objectives. Because this one, you want 3 different colors, and you want 2 blue, and you want to make sure that these 2 are different colors. Well, they have to be, but they don't duplicate colors over here since you need 5 different colors. Okay. Collect stars, place them on your board, complete objectives if possible. You're going to keep taking turns. Let's say I've pulled extra stars off from my example here. That was orange. We'll say that was blue. And that was white. Okay, that was not what it was, but it doesn't matter. Okay, so I took a turn. Next player goes, they take 3 stars. Next player, maybe they take 3 stars. When there is only 1 star left in a system, so after the 4th player goes, then you refill this system. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You are not required to take stars on a turn. So I could do something like going 2 spaces here, and 2 here, and 1 here. I've now had 5 movements. I pick up the red and the purple. I don't take 1 here, but maybe that's okay. I don't want to refill it for the next player. Maybe I'm only hurting myself by taking 2 instead of 3, but you can do that if you wish. Okay. So you're racing to do these objectives, and filling them with enough markers is one way the game ends. If this marker reaches the end of the row, that's another way the game ends. If someone completes 3 constellations, the game ends at the end of that round after everyone has had the same number of turns. And the 4th way is if the bag runs out of stars, which I haven't seen in any of the 7 games, not come close to that at all, but it's a possibility, I suppose. Now, the personal objectives come in different types, and they are repeated for each color. So you have those. Oops, those are all the same. Those. And then you have a couple of different ones. So personal objectives are all worth 14 points. You can be required to have 4 purple stars in the highlighted spaces. There are 5 highlighted spaces on the board. 4 of those need to be purple to satisfy this and get you 14 points. And there's 1 of each color. You need to have 6 white stars anywhere in your galaxy. Okay? And again, repeated for each color. You need 4 orange stars on the indirect links. And since a color cannot be connected to the same color, you can't do orange and orange. It has to be something different. Okay. So again, 1 of those for each of the 6 colors. And then finally, have 4 or fewer spaces. So you need lots of boosted stars and have more black stars than other opponents. You get 2 personal objectives at the beginning of the game. You keep 1 of them. So you can try to overlap things. So if, for example, these were my 2, I might say, well, I definitely want to overlap here because I want 2 blue stars and 3 constellations, and I want blue stars at the end of indirect links, so let's do them at the same time. But of course, other people might be taking blue stars to race to this. So you might not get to satisfy that because someone else is taking all those blue stars. You'll be resorting to chaos all the time. Again, when the game ends, you sum up your points. The game ends in one of those 4 ways: markers, black stars, 3 complete constellations, or no stars in the bag. You sum points for common objectives. You score your personal points here. If you completed that objective, you only have 1. You score points based upon how many black stars you put in this array. And for each completed constellation, you score 6 points. Add those numbers and see who wins. That's the introductory game of Nebula, which I played 4 times with 2, 3, and 4 players, and you might be familiar with other take-and-make games along these lines. Games like Cascadia and Calico, in which you are drafting game components from a central market, you're taking them, and then building something in front of you, making it. That's the take-and-make element there. Those games are quite popular, I think because they kind of straddle the line between competitive and cooperative games, and that you are all competing and trying to win by having more points or reaching some objective first. But you don't get to mess with other people. I'm building on my own, and you can affect what I'm doing. Even if you're drafting from a shared market, those tiles, those elements that you can draft are refilled. So there's always the same number of things for each player on their turn. It's very rare that you're going to hate draft and take something that someone else needs because you might be hurting yourself as much as them. So there's no benefit. In a game like Calico, you're trying to make groups of color and pattern. You're trying to complete objectives. Somewhat similar to Nebula and what you're doing there. But the market's going to get refilled. So am I going to hurt myself and then the perfect tile flips up for you and you get to do what you want anyway because there's multiple tiles in the game? You're not going to do that in general, maybe in a two-player game. So it's friendly. You're competing, but in a friendly, non-threatening manner. And Nebula works similarly in that you're building constellations. Once I take stars, no one else can do anything with them, and it's just a race to complete the objectives. So that's all similar, but you can do a little funny business with the star system market. You can take things, and they're not immediately refilled until you get down to only 1 star in a star system or 2 stars in a two-player game. So you can drain the systems of colors that you think people want, whether for the visible objectives or what you think their personal win is. Because often it becomes very clear. If they put 2 purple stars in highlighted spaces, you can kind of guess what they're doing if that's not a public goal. So maybe you take the purple ones. Okay. That's little things you can try to do to hurt them, and then the market will not be refilled immediately, and maybe you can force someone else to refill it by you just taking nothing. Maybe you've piled up a bunch of stars in reserve because you haven't had many boosted stars. You've been taking 3, place 2, place 3, take 3, place 2, so you've got extras. So you can just take 1 star and then place from the reserve, and 1 star place from the reserve, and slowly drain everything down until someone is like, fine, I'll refill at least 1 system, maybe 2, sometimes 3. Had a game where that happened all at once, where someone just gave in and the next person had a bonanza available to them. So you can control the flow of the market a bit more than in some of the other take and make games. It's somewhat more along the lines of Azul, in that game, the market drains out completely until it's empty. We end the round, we score, we refill it, do it again. Here it's more a continuous ebb and flow of resources that are available to you. So it's very streamlined in that, for the most part, all you're doing is trying to complete objectives as quickly as possible. And tied in with that, your personal objective and the constellations. Because ideally you can get each stone to do multiple things. Somewhat similar to Reiner Knizia's Rebirth. I mean, to take a completely different game, but with that similar element where you're trying to do multiple things with everything you place on the board. A star can satisfy multiple public objectives, maybe your private one as well, and it's working towards completing a constellation, so it's doing a lot. But what happens with that in mind is that you realize the black stars aren't very good. They don't do much for you. I mean, each one you place initially gives you 2 points, and then they give you 3, and then they give you 4, sometimes 5. If you get up in this range, we haven't had anyone get close to this range yet in all these games. But 2 points is kind of what you're getting for every star that's going in here, and sometimes you're getting more. If you complete a constellation, each star, that's 6 points, it's 6 stars, so each star is already giving you a point. If you're also completing a public objective, that's often another point or 2 if you're first for that objective, maybe for a private objective as well. So each star you're placing is generally worth 2 points or more already, which makes the black stars less attractive until you get up higher. Maybe you're taking them because you really want to change the boosted star, because it's a color that lines up with your personal objective and you want to change that so people stop taking that color. Maybe you do that. But in general, in the games that I've seen people go heavy in the black stars, trying to get that set and maximize it to get up to that level where you get 4 and 5 points per star, hasn't happened because the game has ended before that and they lose. They just don't get as many points. So the black stars seem like an option for scoring, but not a good one. At least that's how it's proved out over 4 games. I don't know if that's representative of every time you're going to play the game. May vary, but that's been the experience so far. What's funny though is when you switch to the full game, then you see that the black stars have another purpose and Maybe that's why they're undervalued in the introductory game. For the full game, you add this game board to the table along with 14 wooden tokens on top and 4 random objectives from this deck of advanced objectives. You still have common objectives out there, the race objectives. Here are 4 new ones compared to what I showed you previously. You still have the personal objective. Gameplay is exactly the same, with you taking stars through time or chaos, placing them on your board, trying to complete these public objectives. All of that's the same. What is different is that when you take a black star and put it on your board, in addition to moving this marker, in addition to changing the boosted star if it's the 3rd, 6th, 9th, or 12th time that black star has been taken and placed, well, in addition to that, you are going to move one of these tokens on the board, which gives you additional ways to score points or modify how constellations score. I place a black token, maybe I move this red marker over. And at the end of the game, whichever marker is farthest over, well, each star in that color on every person's board is worth 3 points if this is the first one. Right now, red stars are worth 3 points. If I have a personal objective with red stars, I'm now scoring those red stars twice. I'm introducing a new way to double up on the points rather than just the public and private objective. I'm now adding this as well. And of course, someone else may place a black star. They put orange on top, and now orange is in first. 3 points for orange, 2 points for red. And I place another black star. So now we're up here and we change the boosted color and I bump this out. So again, 3 and 2. And someone does blue, and then someone does yellow. And if the game ends at this point, red is in first, 3 points per red on the board. 2 points for every yellow, 1 point for every blue, 0 points for orange because it's in 4th place, and 4th place is worthless, along with colors that don't move at all. The other tracks work similarly. If I move this Y constellation out here, it's in 1st place right now, and if we end the game this way, that constellation is now worth 14 points if you complete it, instead of 6. All the constellations that don't move are still worth 6 points, but you can advance something else. And now this arch constellation is 14 and the Y one is 12. So you can really pump up the value of a constellation, which changes things. The Y is already something that people are probably going to complete because of this. So maybe you just leave the Y behind and you're like, I'm the only one who's done this. I'll get 14 points for the arch. Maybe no one else has even tried. So you can change that value and getting 8 points for 1 extra action, in addition to the points for placing the black star. Now that's something that's worth doing versus the black star on its own. This track here, you're going to determine which cards are worth points. So we move this one out, and then someone does 3, and someone does 4, and someone bumps 3 up again, and we end like this. Whichever number is first on the track, you get 4 points for every time you satisfy this condition. The points shown here, 3, 2, and 1, they are supposed to be 4, 3, and 2, but early printings had a printing error. The rules were correct. 4 points, 3 points, 2 points. So every time you have a yellow star that's adjacent by orbit to a highlighted star, you get 4 points. So you can do that multiple times on the board. Yellow, orange, and orange. Then super. That works. Now, you can't score everything because if I have a star here, if this is adjacent by orbit, well, it's actually connected, so I can't do that. There's a limit to the number of times you can do anything in this game due to the color placement restrictions. But if you can get 4 or 5 stars that meet this condition, that's an extra 16 or 20 points for relatively little effort. And ideally, you're trying to place those stars anyway to do these things, to get 2 opposite constellations, to get 2 stars of each color. Complete this with 3 stars and only 3 colors. Have 3 complete adjacent orbits. Different challenges here, but again, you can double up or triple up on what you're doing. The other ones, for each orbit that has a blue star in it, if this is in 2nd place, you will get 3 points. So you get a maximum of 15 points by doing this. Ideally, again, combining with these. The first place one, each red star that's linked to an orange star, it's in third place, is worth 2 points. So maybe you can do that multiple times where you have one orange star and you end up linking multiple red stars to it. And so you can score that multiple times. Here's how you can do something like that. 4 red stars, none of the red is touching other red, but you would get 8 points for doing that. So it changes the incentives of what you're doing. This one here, you would choose a color, and each time you have that color and a highlighted star, you would score the points, assuming this is out there, 2, 3, or 4 points, having this out there. Right now it's worthless. Don't even have to consider it. But if you have one of the private objectives where you're trying to get 4 purple stars in highlighted spaces, well, you're already doing that for one objective. Why not do it for this as well? Make sure you take a black star and then push that out so you can double up on what you're doing. That's the only change to the score. Again, scores have varied wildly depending upon how well we've done things. So one game, a 3-player game, we had 142 points for the winner, and then 110 and 91. Person maxed out like crazy. That was me by chance. But another game, 115 was the winning score, barely beating 111. And another game, 101. We barely completed any of the public objectives because we were so focused on getting the black stars, trying to maximize this, really pushing this out, and then the game ended extremely quickly compared to other games. So, very different feel with how the games played out once you add this board to the game. And now you know how to play the full game, which I played 3 times with 2 and 3 players. And it's very much the introductory game with another layer added on top. It's almost a point salad game now in which you get to determine what the croutons and tomatoes are worth, because you have control to some degree, depending upon what the other players are doing, of course, to push up the point value of various things in order to maximize what you are doing. So it gives you a lot to consider, and for some players it was too much. They had played the introductory game, played the full game, and decided they preferred the former. They liked the more streamlined focus of just racing to complete objectives. I don't know if they were focused a little too much on trying to maximize everything. They're calculating, I gotta figure this, and what's this token? I've got 14 possible tokens to move across the board. I want to consider all of those and what I can get the most out of. That's a lot if you are trying to calculate everything. I play more by the seat of the pants. Don't do that. Go by feel. Other people really liked the full game because it did give them the ability to customize to the degree that they wanted, to try to double up and triple up on what they're scoring, overlapping with what else they're doing. I mean, one player did it to their detriment where they were focusing so much on the advanced board that they did not complete objectives at all. So the game ended very quickly because we kept drawing black stars, kept placing them instead of throwing them away or ignoring them or doing whatever. And the game ended quickly, and so the scores were much lower. But you have the freedom to do that if you want. So the nature of the game will play very differently, whereas the introductory game will be fairly consistent. Race, 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 done. That's it. Because everything's streamlined, straightforward, and the full game gives you a bit more. You get to explore in new directions. And I understand why they call it the full game instead of the introductory game, because it does feel now like the game is complete, whereas before, the black stars were undervalued. It just didn't pan out as something you would really want to do, at least based on my experience. Where now with the full game, you're getting those points anyway, and you're doing more. You're upping the value of what you're doing elsewhere. So it's now important to do. These are bonus points on top of what you're doing with the advanced objectives by making colors worth something, or constellations worth more, or those new objectives. So everything is going more valuable, and there's more to consider. So I can see why people like that compared to the original. I can see why people like the original. There's 2 flavors of the Nebula. for you to sample, should you be so inclined.